So any BMW owner can tell you that when you go to click these buttons and car doesn't activate, it's because the battery inside here is dead. I've seen a couple YouTube videos on how to do this. I was a little afraid of doing this myself, but I'm gonna go step by step and show you how to get into one of these things and how to replace the battery. So step one, all we're gonna do is from the factory around this seam, we're just gonna grab a knife and we're gonna break the seam off here. So we're just gonna go in and cut it like that. Luckily, I've been cutting this every so often, and I pretty much have gotten down to the last seam, so I should be able to pop it open. Yep. And be careful when you're popping these open, because the last thing you want to do is break any internals or stab your finger. So I'm going to try to level it here. Old seam, pop it open. Let's see here. There it is, that's one side. We're gonna do the other side. Just like that. Just wiggle it back and forth until it finally comes undone. Just like that. There's the other end of the BMW key, the glue, and the battery. So, what you gotta do here now is you got to get into the behind this battery. So what I like to do is I'm going to put on some gloves right now, just because I'm touching electronics. All right, so now we're going to get behind here. We're going to flip this over as carefully as possible without damaging any electronics. Just like that. Cool. And here you go. Here's the main little frame, the BMW key. Now, unfortunately, the company has soldered two little tangs onto this battery. So in order to get that off, we have to heat up the solder and slip it out. And hopefully later on, when you put the new battery back in, you can just heat these up and punch them in. So let me get the solder. So we got my little soldering tool, nice and hot. And what we're gonna do is on these little corners, right here and right here, we're gonna heat them out and try to press this battery out. You wanna be very careful not to touch any of the other electronics. You could damage them. So we'll try this first one. Just like that. Heat it, and I like to press out while we're heating the battery terminal. Oh, and the solder ran out. Gotta charge it. Well, while we're waiting for the soldering gun to charge, we can go ahead and do another thing. The battery that came with this has a lot thicker tabs. I don't know if you could see that better, but it's got a lot of thicker tabs, a thicker neck, and these really don't. So what we're gonna have to do is kind of trim off as best as we can that one really fat one, as thin as we can, because it comes out a little too angled. So we have this little tool here. Let me pop this battery out. Okay. Cool. So we have this little cutting tool I have. And I'm just gonna make the sides of it a little bit thinner on the fat end of the battery. I'm just gonna cut it a little bit like that on one end and on the other end, so that way this little fat neck can fit in there, so we could have a good ground on the battery. So I'm gonna do that real quick, show you guys how to get that about. side too. Just like that. Alright, so now that we've heated up our test light, I'm just going to continue doing as I was doing before. Just heat the tips up and then push the battery out. That's one side that's out. Now we gotta push out the second one. Just like that. Cool. We could reuse the solder on there from the battery. So now we're going to take our new battery, pull the ratty one. I'm going to flip it over and just line up exactly where the holes are. One's going to be bigger, one's going to be smaller. So clearly the side that we shaved down to make it fit better is going to go here. The other side is going to go in there. So the battery can then have a connection point with the white. So there and there. So I'll try to press one and hold on the other. Might take a bit. In. And now the little one. Before it seeds in. Just that right there. And now the little one. Solder, press it through. A little bit more. And we'll do the big one too, just to get it through all the way. Cool. Now that the battery is stationed in, before we decide to seal it any further, we're actually going to attach it back to the key. So you can see the 4, or the 3 actually, tangs. We're gonna go to the 3 right here. Just like this. I'm gonna press this in. Very gently. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna seal it like this, nice and tight. And we're gonna go outside and we're gonna make sure this works before sealing it away, because once we seal it, that's it, done deal. So let's head outside and see if this works with the car. So we got our key, let's head out here. So the flick of the key opens and closes. So we know that the battery's making good contact in there and it opens up. So now let's go inside and reseal this. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna open this back up ever so carefully. Just like that. It seems like there's really not much we have to clean around here. To be honest, it's pretty good. So, what we're gonna do, and it's really not that bad. Alright, so what we're gonna do here is, take the gloves off for a second, because I don't deal with the electronics anymore. I'm gonna grab some black RTV, something like this, tube of it'll do, and I'm gonna dab it on both ends, seal them shut, and use vice grips to hold them down. So we'll start with this end, just like this. Maybe I should have kept my gloves on. Nah, whatever. Alright, so we're just gonna grab a little and just ever so slightly on the seams of it. We're just gonna go ever so delicately put it on around the edges where the key fob battery end will meet the button end. Just like that. And don't worry about some of the edges leaking out or making it look ugly. When it dries, you could just take a razor and clean it all up. I'll probably just fast forward through this part because it'll be a little boring. Okay, then for the last part, we're just gonna weld them together, just like this. There. And like I said, don't worry about it looking ugly right now, because you will have a chance to make this look pretty later on. Use a knife when it's all done and solidified. You can go around the edges and cut it all off. So there you go. And now what we'll have to do is grab a couple pairs of vice grips, clamp them on. So there we go. So I'll put one carefully on the edge here, just like that. And I'll put one just missing the button up front, like right there. Right there. And like I said, don't worry about it looking a little ugly right now, because later on when that dries, you pretty much take a knife to it and clean it up. But in the meantime, this is how the finished product will look. As you can see, I went around the edges. There are little flakes here and there, but go around the edges and you make it nice and clean, and it stays pretty good. So that's pretty much the end of this video. That's to save anyone a couple bucks when they have this. And honestly, when I looked at the videos first, I saw in 12-13 minutes. I'm like, what's taking 12-13 minutes? But it's this entire process. So hopefully it's a lot easier. You can see what I did with the soldering, with the batteries, what kind of terminals and all that. And hopefully that makes it a heck of a lot better to install, or to understand how to install a battery in one of these keys. So my name is Seabass. That's the video, and see you on the next auto hobby.